Okay, Helen, thank you for taking the time today.
Yeah, no, I'm more than happy to be here. I'm very grateful to be invited on.
So let's get into this. What is your earliest football memory?
I would say it's probably being on the side of a pitch when my older brother was playing as a sort of 7-8-year-old in my wellies, kicking a ball around while he's playing with his friends. And then, in the garden, mucking around with him before joining my first team at, I think I was 8 or 9, when my brother Chris, he brought home a flyer from school with the information about Watford. And that was it. That was where the sort of crazy journey began.
Okay, we were just, before you guys, we don't know this, but Helen and I are very close in age. Our sons are also very close in age. So I also have an older brother, and that's also why I started playing. So how much older is your brother than you?
He is just under 3 years older than me.
Same as my brother. Yep.
Wow, that is weird.
Yeah. Okay. And we're maybe connected in the past.
Yeah, must be.
Time, right?
Yeah.
What was the first game that you went to?
Oh, the first one I can remember going to was Sheffield Wednesday against Watford at Vicarage Road. I think it was a cup match. And again, I went with my older brother. I think I was front row of the family stand, as it was called then, right next to the dugouts. And whether I really knew what was going on or not, I'm not sure, but I loved it. And ever since then, Vicarage Road has been like a second home to me. So I must have caught the bug somehow, but I think it finished in a 1-1 draw, which was quite good at the time. So I believe Sheffield Wednesday were a league or so above Watford. So yeah, it was good. I enjoyed it.
Idol growing up?
My idol was probably early on, nothing to do with football, but someone like Sally Gunnell. I really respected her. I loved watching athletics, and remember being on holiday weirdly in Scotland in the chucking down rain around 1992 Olympics, and we were watching it on a real sort of grainy TV. And I think, if I remember rightly, she did pretty well in those Olympics, and ended up meeting her randomly in a health shop opening. I think it was a Holland and Barrett's in Watford Town Centre. So I met her and had her autograph when she opened that. So she was someone I looked up to, as well as the likes of Michael Owen in terms of football. He was my favourite player, still is. I kind of modelled my game on him, playing off the shoulder of the last defender and using my pace. And he was an unbelievable finisher, and I still don't think I've seen a better finisher than him. And he's definitely one of them. I was not a Liverpool fan, still not a Liverpool fan, but I had about 6 Liverpool shirts with his name and number on the back.
I mean, he played for some big teams, but I mean, he was, like you said, he was a true number 9.
Yeah.
Today, but he was a finisher. But we'll get into that with a finisher and a goal scorer. Growing up, did you play in a mixed team? And what do you think about, I mean, you have a son and a daughter, so this might be really good. What do you think are the advantages and disadvantages?
I played in a mixed team at school. Me and my friend were the first girls to be allowed to play in the boys team at our primary school. And I think that was from year 4. So how old? About 9, I think, maybe I was then. And then we played with the boys. And it was great. The boys were brilliant. I never had any stick from them. I was probably quite lucky, because I know that's not always the case for some girls. Wow. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I never played for a club team with boys. It was always a girls team. But I think there are definitely advantages to it. I think it toughens you up. I think boys are more rough and tumble from an earlier age. They get stuck in, and even then physically you probably have to be a bit quicker and a bit stronger. So that's definitely an advantage. But also on the flip side, I think for some girls, playing with other girls is maybe better for your confidence, maybe gives you a bit more belief, and you're less likely to give up. There's definite pros to both. It just depends on your sort of mentality and how you feel about playing with boys and or girls, to be honest. I think it's different for everyone.
Yeah, I think it's different when you have kids too. Like I would tell my 13-year-old niece, go play with boys, because like you said, they are stronger and faster at that age. you know, when they develop and it's a different game, but then also you have to see the aspect of my other niece, I'd say go because it's more of a social, they need more of a social aspect to the game.
Yeah, totally.
And we'll get into your years now at Watford. Like I was saying, Helen has quite a career here. And I love when you said, you know, when we were the first two girls allowed to play for the youth teams. It's like, you're only 34, I'm only 34, so we grew up in the same time period. But now it's such a common thing for girls to play with boys, but they don't realize how many has changed. Okay, so you joined the game at age 9, and obviously you already went over this because of your brother. What did a typical week look like when you first joined?
Very basic. I think we trained once a week, one evening a week, and to begin with, it was in a small sports hall, probably not even big enough for a five-a-side, wooden floor. You know, take your own ball, wear your own kit, kind of thing. But I loved it. It was brilliant. It was, you know, the best night of the week was going to training with my friends and running around in a sweaty sports hall. And then, games on a weekend. I think for the first probably year, it was just one day each weekend. And then I think after that, for a couple of years, I played Saturdays and Sundays, because I played for the under-10s on a Saturday and then the under-12s on a Sunday in a bigger sided game. So yeah, it was sort of one training session and then a couple of games at the weekend early on. And it pretty much stayed like that through most of my youth career. We never really trained more than once a week until I got, you know, way later on into senior football, when I was probably 19, 20, I'd say, that we went for more than one session a week. Yeah. Probably why I've still been able to play, because my knees and ankles haven't taken quite such a battering.
You played at Watford for 14 years. What was the biggest changes at the club that you saw during this time? I'm sure that it's huge in women's football, so maybe a top one or two in a good thing, obviously. Yeah,
there's massive changes. You know, as I said, the whole youth career was spent at random little places for training, and, you know, never had our own facilities. And even up till when I left the first time around, I think we were training at the University of Hertfordshire. That was our sort of base. It was, you know, great facility, good 3G pitch. We were training twice a week by that point. But, you know, the club wasn't quite as integrated, the women's side and the men's side, as it is now. But, you know, things grew as the game grew. And the Watford I left is very, very different to the Watford I came back to, in a good way. Like, it's brilliant now. It's so professional, even though in theory we're 2 leagues lower down than we were when I first left, because at that point we were playing in the Women's Premier League, which was the equivalent to the Super League now. But the setup, we're at the training ground, we're fully integrated with the guys, we're involved in all the media campaigns and all that kind of stuff. So everything in the background is spot on, and, you know, it's just up to us now to do the stuff on the pitch and hopefully get the results to take us back up to those top levels.
Yeah. Was being captain something you'd always aspired towards, or was it unexpected?
It sort of just happened naturally, I think. I actually was captain when I left as well, the first time round. I think that was probably because I had been there the longest at that point, and it was a natural kind of thing. And then again, when I came back, I wasn't obviously made captain straight away. We had another player that was doing that job, but then when she moved on, I was fortunate enough that the manager, Armand, at the time, he decided that he wanted me to be the captain. But again, that could be more to do with the fact I'm about 10 years older than the next player in the team. But no, it's a massive honour for me, and again, it's the club I love. So to wear the armband and sort of have that responsibility is really special. And, you know, it doesn't make me a different player, I don't think. I'd like to think whether I've got an armband or not, you're going to get the same from me, especially on the pitch. But perhaps just gives me that little bit more responsibility off of it, and hopefully I do that quite well.
Your best goal you've scored for Watford?
Wow. You know, it's really hard to think of any at the moment. I scored one last season that I quite liked. It was outside the box, and I don't get many of them. It was in a cup game against Oxford, and towards the right-hand side of the area, I noticed that the goalkeeper was off her line and just put like a nice little chip into the far corner over her head. So that's probably up there in terms of technical. I I can't really think of any others off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are a few in there. But one of my favourites is probably actually in my first spell in a game against Arsenal, who were absolutely flying. They had the likes of Alex Scott, Kelly Smith, Rachel Yankee, all flying at that point, and I managed to score a couple of goals that day. So that was good. Unfortunately, we didn't win those, so they don't mean quite as much. With the result not being too good, but it was nice to, in our first season at that level, to be able to score a couple of goals against the best team in the country at the time was pretty cool. So yeah, I'll go with those ones.
Moving into your Chelsea Arsenal, why did you go to Arsenal? It was 2009, I believe.
Yeah.
Why then, and why the change?
I had no intention of moving on. I was very, very happy at Watford. As I said, we were doing really well. We'd had a really good first season in the top league, and we were doing well halfway through the second one. But I think when a club like Arsenal comes in and sort of puts an offer on the table, you kind of think, this is now or never. If I turn it down, everyone's going to say, what were you thinking? You know, they're the best team in Europe around about that time as well, or one of the best. And it was a chance to go and play with some of the best players in the country and in the world, and a chance to play in Europe as well. And I felt like I'd given everything I could to Watford by that point. And although I was very loyal to them, I'd like to hope I went with their blessing, and that, you know, it wasn't any bad blood by me leaving. And it was just a step that I had to take. And it was just a bit surreal, really. I actually signed my contract on New Year's Day, and it was the first contract I'd ever signed. I'd never been paid to play football before, so everything was a little bit surreal. And then turning up to all these superstars was quite crazy. But yeah, it's a decision I had to make. It was tough because I loved it there, but at Watford. But yeah, I had to do it.
I mean, and you're going to sign Arsenal for your first contract. I mean, it's crazy to me. Sometimes you think how much the game has grown in 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, up to then, I think I actually paid subs to play that season for Watford. So technically, they probably owe me half a season sub.
Exactly. No bad blood for sure.
Yeah.
You scored on your debut. Does this help to remove the pressure after a move, or create more pressure as you set your standard early?
I think it relieves pressure as a goal scorer and as a forward. I think you're judged on your goals, so the longer you go without one, the harder it becomes. It does set your stall out early, but then if that's what's expected of you, then you need to set that stall out early. So yeah, that was a big relief. I think there were a couple of games called off in the build-up to that one because it was in January. There was probably snow, rain, something like that, so games kept getting postponed. So the longer the wait went on, the more nerve-wracking it was. But I think it was a cup game against a team in a division or two below, so it was probably quite a nice way to go into the squad and to score my first goal.
I say it now as a 9. Do you figure yourself as like you taught yourself to be tactical in the box, or are you just a natural? Are you just a born? You got a nose for goal, they say in America. I don't know what they say in England, but
I think there's probably an element of both. I think the ones where you find yourself in the 6-yard box and you're tapping in from 2 or 3 yards, I think that is instinct. I think that's a natural, something in your brain just senses where the ball's going to go. And even more so, if you build up relationships with the players that are putting the balls into the box, you just know what type of delivery you're going to get, and your instinct sort of takes you there. I don't think you can teach that. I think you can perhaps improve on it slightly if it's not natural to you, but I think it is. I think it's a natural instinct that some players have and some players don't. In terms of other finishing, I think you can always work on that, different types of finish. I'd like to think that since I was younger, I've, varied on how I'd finish in certain situations, looking at the goalkeeper. Do you go round them? Do you put it near post, far post? That kind of thing. I think that is something you can learn and improve on. But in terms of those real basic, people say, oh, she only scores tapping, but that might be the case, but you have to be there to tap it in, and that is a skill in itself, in my opinion. Yeah. I mean, I would say that because that's what I do.
Exactly. Do you have a highlight of being at Arsenal?
I think I can't really look past the FA Cup final win. and winning the league twice. So obviously I only played half the season the first season, but to be part of winning that league was really good. And the FA Cup the following season, I played a bigger part in the league, and I felt like I really earned that medal. So yeah, I think you can't look past trophies, and the experiences I gained by playing with such fantastic players. I'll never lose that.
I mean, of all those players, I mean, that Arsenal team I remember watching, and that was like the standard for women's football. Do you have a favorite? Or, I mean, okay, I played against Kelly Smith and Alex Scott at the end of their careers. Nietzsche was with me on 3 different teams. But do you have someone that was like, I haven't seen someone like that in the women's game?
I only briefly played with Kelly Smith, but she was unbelievable. You'd look at training and you think, she's not doing a lot, she's not moving much, and then bang, she'll do something unbelievable, and you think, okay, yeah, I get it. And the other one who I played more with was Kim Little, and she was only a kid at that point. I think she must be about 3 or 4 years younger than we are.
Yeah, I think she's 31 maybe.
So I think when I signed for Arsenal at 22, 23, she must have only been 18 or 19, but she was ridiculous then. And I joke quite a lot that I really helped her in those early days, because my job was basically to make runs to give her space to get on the ball so she could do her thing. So I'm going to take a little bit of credit for her for her career. But no, jokes aside, she's a ridiculous footballer, and and a really nice girl as well. Some players let the ability and the adulation get to their heads a little bit, but she's an unbelievable person as well as a player. So I'd definitely say she's up there as one of the best that I've played with, definitely.
And you said before you only did a season and a half with Arsenal. So why, after 18 months, did you switch to Chelsea?
No, I just I wasn't getting the game time really by that point. Management had changed a couple of times, and for whatever reason I didn't quite fit into the way the team were playing, and I was only getting sort of 10-15 minutes off the bench here and there, and I was at that point in my career where I couldn't afford to just be sat on the bench. As amazing as the squad was, it wasn't the case of me throwing my toys out the pram, because I couldn't. I was with such an incredible group of players that it was kind of just like a point where I had to hold my hands up and say, look, I'm going to have to move on to get the game time. And it was mutually sort of agreed, and I moved on, and Matt Beard, who was at Chelsea, gave me a call and said, look, we're interested in bringing you in, what do you think? And it came at the right time for me, because I'd got a bit disillusioned about playing, just because, as I said, I hadn't had as much game time. So for a manager to give me a call and actively seek me out and want me to play, it was kind of what I needed. And it was the start of the WSL. There was sort of a 9 or 10 month sort of gap between me signing and the season starting, because it had switched to a summer league, so it gave me a good chance to bed in with the team and get going in that way. Yeah.
Best advice for a young striker looking to take their game to the next level?
I mean, a striker or any player that's young, just work hard, acknowledge your strengths and your weaknesses, but work on both. Don't always, it's important not to neglect your strengths, because they're going to be what carry you through games. So make sure you turn your strengths into super strengths, but also acknowledge the areas of the game that you perhaps need to work on, and spend time doing that as well. Listen to coaches, players, take criticism as an opportunity to learn rather than as criticism. Don't think you know best, because the chances are you probably don't. Not always going to agree with your coaches, but take on board what they're saying, and hopefully you can learn from it. But most of all, I'd say just enjoy it and play with a smile on your face. If you find that you're not playing with a smile on your face, then you need to have a look at why and try and address that. But I find that when I'm at my happiest, then I'm going to be at my best in terms of how I play. So yeah, the biggest one is smile and enjoy it.
When you were at Chelsea, this was the men who were starting to win a lot of trophies. Did you feel as a women's team you had that same pressure, or was it more like you said, you could just, that was probably the start of Chelsea becoming more professional?
Yeah, we weren't anywhere near as big a part of the club as they are now. I think Emma Hayes has done amazing things there, since she came in. And you could see that at the end of my time at Chelsea, when Emma had been there, I think just under or just over a year. you could see that she was starting to get her feet under the table and make sure that she was speaking to the right people to get the women, you know, right on board. And she's certainly done that. But we didn't really have the same sort of pressure, because at that point, Chelsea women weren't the high profile team. They weren't expected to win trophies, so we didn't quite have the same pressure. But whenever you put the shirt on of any club like that, those that don't necessarily know the game will look at you and say, oh, you're a Chelsea player, you must win a lot of trophies. So you kind of had, you know, a little bit of that, but generally speaking, we didn't challenge as high as we should have done with the squad we had. We made an FA Cup final that we lost on penalties, and that still hurts now. 8 years on, it still kills me. But yeah, it was a very different place then to what it is now, and you've got to give Emma massive credit for that.
Do you remember getting your first call up?
Yeah, so it was a strange one. I'd had caps at under 23 level for England, and I just never really fitted in with the setup, with the style of play. I just didn't ever feel part of it. I felt like a bit of a spare part. And at Watford at the time, our assistant manager was also the assistant manager with Wales. Okay. And he'd heard from someone in the Wales team that I might have Welsh heritage. And so he just said at training one day, sort of half joking, half not, you know, have you got any Welsh grandparents you didn't know about? And I said, well, actually, I do know about them. Yeah, my mum's parents are both Welsh. He said, well, what do you think? Do you want to come down and give it a go? And I had to think about it. It's a strange thing, sort of growing up as English, and then suddenly someone saying, well, why don't you become Welsh? And it was a bit like, whoa, hang on a sec. But I went along to a training camp, and from the second I stepped in, the girls were unbelievable, and I never felt like I was an odd one out or out of place. And they were kind of like, you're a goal scorer, we'd love to have you, you know, what do you think? And I was like, yeah, let's go for it. And it's honestly the best decision I've ever made in my life, pretty much, football or otherwise. And, you know, I'm massively proud of what we and I have gone on to achieve since then, in 12 years, I think, since I made my debut.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was, I can't remember the actual first call up for a game. I know the game, but I can't remember hearing about it or receiving the call up. But I just know that I was very excited and a little bit nervous as well.
Do you prefer home games in front of your own fans or traveling to new countries for away games?
I think I'd have to say home games, just because obviously now we haven't got fans at the moment, but we built up a real good sort of support base, and our little mini red wall, that we call them, that were fantastic during our World Cup campaign and for the start of this campaign. And you know, there's nothing like hearing the crowd and singing the anthem and everything like that comes with it is unbelievable. And plus the fact that when you travel away, you sort of see a hotel and a football pitch. You don't really get to see much of the places you visit. So it's cool to say that I've been to Prague twice, but if you wanted to ask me a question about it, I couldn't give you an answer, because I literally saw a hotel and a football pitch. So yeah, I think I'd have to go with home, and you know, the fans that come with that and everything. So yeah, definitely home game.
Did your record-breaking goal feel different, and did you celebrate any differently?
You know, I haven't got a clue when or what the goal was.
Really?
Yeah, I wasn't aware of it. I think the first record I would have overtaken is possibly Jane Ludlow's. I think she was a top scorer when I started playing, with maybe 18 or 19 goals.
Yeah.
And without sounding really big-headed here, I think I surpassed that fairly quickly into my career. But I don't know when it was. I couldn't tell you when it was, and I don't think I would have realised until it had gone that it was any sort of record. And then in terms of the overall men and women's record that Ian Rush won, again, I couldn't tell you when it was. I remember my 30th goal because it was on my 50th cap.
Okay.
That was quite cool, and we won the game 1-0, so it was a pretty important goal. It was at the Cardiff City Stadium, so it was a big stadium. It was a World Cup or European qualifier, so it was a bigger game, and being my 50th cap as well, I remember that. But yeah, the others, I've got no idea when they were or who they were again.
So we'll just have to enter like a YouTube clip here.
I don't know if I had YouTube when I scored it.
Given the strength of most international opponents you will have faced and the value of international goal, is breaking the record your greatest achievement, and do you think it will ever be broken? Just say no.
I think it's certainly my biggest achievement in football, for sure. I'm massively proud of my record, and I didn't add to it for quite some time until the Faroe Islands game a couple of weeks ago. I think that's my first goal since I had Charlie. So going on 3 years without an international goal was by far the longest I'd gone. Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm very, very proud of it. Obviously, I'm thankful to the players I've played with that put a lot of those on a plate for me. In terms of will it get broken?
We'll say no. I'll say no. And just for everyone, this is women and men. Ellen has the record for both. I don't think you're very humble, I can tell from this interview. It's the first time we're talking, but I mean, that is an incredible.
Well, Gareth got a nice golden boot or golden pair of boots when he overtook Ian Rush. So I'm still waiting for mine. Maybe they don't have my address. I don't know.
Usually get a scarf or something along that women's football.
Yeah.
What do you think Wales needs to do to take the next step to qualify for regular tournaments or the major tournaments?
Well, hopefully we'll be able to do it next month, but it's going to be difficult. We've put ourselves in a bit of a difficult position by drawing a couple of games with Northern Ireland earlier in the group. We're so close. It's just probably finding that ruthlessness and the consistency of it. We've got unbelievable performances in us. It's just making sure that we produce that on a more consistent basis, probably. And that comes with experience. The younger players now that are being integrated into the group will be learning a lot, through these games that they're involved in. And hopefully that means that when it comes to them playing more regularly and starting more games, then they can take it to the next level. But yeah, there's not much. A little bit of luck here and there. I feel like in the last 2 campaigns we could have had quite a few penalties that haven't been given. Little instances like that. Results elsewhere going our way is kind of what we need. But we're doing everything we can to try and qualify, and hopefully we manage to do it. But it's not in our hands, unfortunately, this time round.
Now I'm slowly starting the process of returning for fun. I mean, this is more for me, but after you had your children, obviously Charlie was probably a little bit easier. How long did it take you to get back into the swing of football? Like just to start the process, and then how long till you felt like, okay, I'm back. My body and my head, my thinking process are aligned, because now my process and my body are gaps apart.
That's the hardest thing to get your head around, because with both of them, I think I was back training in some capacity between sort of 6 and 8 weeks, but by no means anywhere near able to play. This is very basic. You dip in and out of the session. You don't do the whole thing, kind of, that kind of level. And I had a bit more time with Emily because I'd had her in September and the league didn't start till April. So I had a bit more freedom, and we also weren't in the middle of a qualifying campaign or anything with Wales. It was one of those years where you don't really have too many fixtures other than your training camp and friendly. I needed to learn so much about my body and what it should and shouldn't be doing at that point. I had diastasis recti as well, which I don't know if you're unfortunate enough to suffer from, when your abs split basically down the middle. Yeah, that's not nice. It doesn't hurt, and I didn't know I had it until I spoke to a physio about it, but that's another story. And then with Charlie, it was a little bit more, not rushed, but I was a bit more keen to get back sooner, because again, I had him in September, but the season was starting then. I think I missed 2 qualifiers for Wales in that period, besides the ones before, obviously when I was pregnant. So I was in a little bit more of a rush. But I'd been able to do more during my pregnancy with him because I had learnt from the first time, and I think I was in the gym up to 6 weeks before I had him and tried to keep going in that way. But again, the same thing happens where you're on the training pitch and you're thinking, I'm going to make a run there. Oh no, it's gone. It's too late. I'm too slow. And your head is miles ahead of your body. And that for me was so hard, because you think, I can't imagine ever feeling like I used to. And then gradually it just gets there. And whether it's a moment in a game or a training session where you have a good touch, or you beat someone to a ball and you think, it's there, I'm back, I'm okay, this is going to be all right. But it's a strange feeling, because it does feel like it's going to take forever, and then suddenly you're like, no, okay, I feel good now, and you feel better in yourself, how you look, how you feel, fitness and stuff. So yeah, it's different for everyone. Alex Morgan, one of the best players in the world, and I know she's had a few things since coming to Spurs that have not allowed her to make her debut until last weekend. So it's so different for everyone, and I've never judged how fast or not fast people come back to playing.
Yeah, I mean, I just read Alex took like 184 days. I mean, that's half a year to come back. And then I'm laughing because I train with the team here 3 times a week at night, and I trained back on the pitch again for the first time, like you said, in and out of the sessions, the +1 neutral player. Yeah. And I saw this beautiful long ball I could hit, a dime, and I go to hit it left peg, and I'm trying to go in the corner, and I think it went out for throwing on the side. Okay.
Not quite there yet. But yeah, you'll find yourself in not too long, and you'll see that pass again, and you'll hit it, and you'll nail it, and you'll think, yes, there we go. That's what Helen was talking about.
How was lockdown earlier this year? How did you stay fit and motivated? And did you pick up any new hobbies?
It was tough, obviously, for everyone. It was really tough. My husband was furloughed, which is never ideal for anyone, but for me personally it was quite handy, because it meant he was here with me, because obviously Emily wasn't at school either. So the thought of doing those 3 months at home with the kids on my own would have been, I don't know if I'd have coped. So him being here was good. We had a lot of time as a family that we wouldn't ever have got at this point in their lives. So we were really grateful for that. Go and use the treadmill for, even if it was just 20 minutes in the day, it was that time to go and do something for me, and to feel good about myself, and know that I was hopefully putting myself in a good position for when we could return to play. So yeah, I became a bit of a runner in lockdown, and that's not normally me. I'm not. I like running on a football pitch, but I don't like running on my own.
I think we're the same.
So yeah,
somehow in the past life.
I know, it's mad, isn't it? Yeah. In terms of hobbies, I didn't do loads of baking, but I did try my hand at a few, and I've nailed the brownie. I'm going to put it out there. It's one of, if not the best brownie I've tasted. So I'm going to back myself on that one. If you entered me into a brownie competition, I think I'd be in with a good chance. So if we ever meet, I'll make sure I treat you to a brownie.
And now we're talking about, you brought up lockdown number 2, and you recently tweeted, or I saw it, you talk about how the teams that get to play in England and the teams don't get to play in England. So now the suspension of non-elite football disproportionately affects the women's game. What damage will the suspension do to women's football in the UK, from the grassroots to the top tiers? And is the more damage actually done by calling top tier football for women non-elite?
Yes, I'm hoping that, because, fingers crossed, it's only going to be the 4 weeks that we've had to take a break, as long as it does end on the 2nd of December as it's supposed to. But I think it's not the fact that we're missing out on playing, it's the message we're kind of sending to the younger players. What does that tell the girl about girls football and women's football? It says that it's not as important. Yeah. And that for me is a dangerous message, for both the boys and the girls. If the boys think it and the girls think it, it's going to really damage how women's football and girls football is perceived. So I think that's the worst thing.
Last question. What's been the secret to prolonging your career, ensuring that you are fit and playing at the highest level, minus your baking abilities with the brownies?
I think a lot of players, particularly females probably, I would guess that, put a lot of pressure on themselves to be fit or look a certain way.
No.
And even if you're feeling a bit crap, I don't know if I can say that, sorry, one day, you don't have to go out and train till you break, knowing when those days are. Obviously you have to put yourself through that, but it's knowing when to do it, and when to say, do you know what, I just need a day where I need to just do me and chill out on the sofa and veg out. Like, it's knowing when to have those days and that it's okay. I think it's probably the biggest one, because I do see people that train insanely 6 or 7 days a week and they're going to break down. So I think it's just that you learn as you get older that you can't do that, and I think that's probably one of the biggest things for me is just learning my own body, and that everybody's different.
That's it. You've answered everything. From, I have to say, I am very impressed, and my goal is to be a coach, and if you're not doing the Watford Academy or something at this, I'm coming for you to be my or I'll be your assistant, because I'm very, very impressed, and it's been an honor to talk
thank
to
you very much,
and some good messages. So I appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll be in touch somehow, some way, and I'm coming for those brownies. Yeah.
Tell you what, when you become my assistant, I'll bring the brownies, no worries.
All right, take care.